Stop everything, because what's erupting across the timeline right now doesn't feel like ordinary rap drama. It feels like something deeper, something layered, something that's been quietly building pressure for years, and has finally found a way to explode all at once. And at the center of this storm are three names that already come with history, tension, and unresolved narratives: Nicki Minaj, Remy Ma, and Papoose. For a long time, their stories existed in separate lanes, occasionally intersecting but never fully colliding in a way that forced everything into the open. Fans thought they understood the dynamics. There was a clear past feud, a clear sense of loyalty, a clear image of who stood where. But what's happening now is challenging that clarity in a way that feels almost unsettling. Because instead of a single moment sparking outrage, this is unfolding like a slow, deliberate unraveling, one piece at a time. It didn't begin loudly. There was no major announcement, no dramatic confrontation to set things off. Instead, it started quietly, almost subtly, with a screenshot. No caption, no explanation, just a cropped message thread that seemed incomplete but intentional. The kind of post that doesn't scream for attention but demands it anyway. And within hours, it had spread everywhere. At first, people weren't even sure what they were looking at. But then the details started to settle in. The tone, the phrasing, the implication. The conversation, allegedly tied to Papoose, didn't match the public persona that had been built over years. Because Papoose, in the eyes of many, represented loyalty in its purest form. He was the man who stood by Remy Ma through prison, through setbacks, through the kind of situations that test relationships beyond repair. That image wasn't just accepted, it was respected, but the message in that screenshot felt different. Controlled. Calculated. Almost like someone who had been moving quietly behind the scenes rather than reacting emotionally in the moment. And then there was the line that changed everything. "I've been writing more than you think." That sentence didn't just create conversation, it triggered a chain reaction. Because almost instantly, it connected back to something that had been buried under years of dismissal. During the height of one of the most intense rap feuds in modern hip-hop, Nicki Minaj made claims suggesting that Remy Ma wasn't entirely responsible for her own lyrics. At the time, those accusations were brushed off as typical battle rhetoric, sharp, exaggerated, designed to hit hard but not necessarily meant to be taken literally. Now that context feels different. Because when a statement like that resurfaces alongside something that appears to support it, people don't just revisit the claim, they reevaluate it. And that's exactly what happened. Within hours, more alleged receipts began to surface. Different screenshots, different conversations. Not identical, but similar enough to suggest a pattern. And with every new piece, the same uncomfortable idea started gaining traction. That the creative process behind certain lyrics might not have been what fans believed. The internet reacted in waves. Supporters of Nicki Minaj moved quickly, treating the situation as long-awaited validation. Old clips resurfaced, interviews, live streams, moments where she hinted at things without explicitly confirming them. One particular clip began circulating again, showing her with a knowing expression saying, "Some people don't write what you think they write." At the time, it was dismissed as shade. Now it felt like something else entirely, like a statement waiting for context. That on the other side, supporters of Remy Ma weren't convinced. They questioned the legitimacy of the leaks, the timing, the motives behind their release. Because when multiple pieces of information appear in sequence, each one reinforcing the last, it doesn't feel accidental. Feels structured. And structure implies intent. That tension between belief and skepticism became the foundation of everything that followed. Then came the second wave. This time it wasn't text, it was audio. Short, clear, and impossible to ignore. A voice widely believed online to be connected to Papoose, speaking in a tone that wasn't defensive or emotional, but casual. Almost too casual. I put that whole verse together. That single sentence shifted the conversation instantly. Because audio carries something that text doesn't. Presence. It feels immediate, real, harder to dismiss, even when authenticity hasn't been confirmed. And just like that, speculation intensified. Now the question wasn't just whether something happened, it was how much happened and how often. Remy Ma's response added another layer of complexity. Instead of directly addressing the allegations, the narrative reportedly shifted toward themes of betrayal and loyalty. To some, that felt like deflection. To others, it felt like someone responding emotionally under pressure. But in situations like this, what isn't addressed often becomes louder than what is. And the internet doesn't leave silence alone. It fills it. So people started digging. Threads appeared, long, detailed breakdowns mapping timelines, comparing past interviews with present claims. Moments that once seemed unrelated began to connect. Dates lined up. Events overlapped. And slowly a pattern started to emerge. That's when things took a darker turn. Because patterns are harder to dismiss than isolated incidents. One particular detail caught widespread attention. Periods where public appearances suggested unity, while alleged private messages hinted at something completely different. That contradiction didn't just raise questions, it disrupted the narrative people had accepted for years. Because if the public story and the private reality don't match, then which one is real? And that question doesn't just apply to one situation, it extends to everything surrounding it. Right in the middle of all this, Nicki Minaj remained relatively quiet. No direct confirmations, no detailed explanations. But her presence was still felt, because everything unfolding seemed to echo things she had said before. That alignment is what gave the situation its weight, because coincidence can explain one or two overlaps. But when multiple elements begin to match across time, it starts to feel intentional. And then came the video, grainy, unstable, but undeniably tense. Two voices, controlled but sharp, exchanging words that didn't sound rehearsed. There was no shouting, just precision. "You're trying to make me look crazy. You're doing that yourself." That moment didn't just circulate, it divided. Because suddenly the focus shifted again. It wasn't just about what happened, it was about how it was being presented. About perception, that if one person appears composed while the other appears reactive, who does the audience believe? And does that perception matter more than the actual truth? That question became central to the conversation. Social media turned into a battlefield. Supporters of Nicki Minaj framed the situation as a long overdue reveal, a moment where past claims were finally being validated. Supporters of Remy Ma pushed back, arguing that the leaks felt coordinated, designed to discredit rather than inform. And then there were those watching from the middle, trying to separate fact from manipulation, reality from strategy. Because by this point, trust had become fragile. Every new piece of information was questioned. Every clip was analyzed. Every timeline was scrutinized. And then another detail surfaced. A structured breakdown, allegedly compiled from multiple leaks, showing a sequence of events that appeared consistent across different sources. Not identical, but aligned enough to suggest something more than coincidence. Inside that breakdown was something people couldn't ignore: repetition. Similar claims, similar dynamics, cross different moments in time. And within that, one line stood out. "She's been controlling the story for years." Whether verified or not, that statement carried weight. Because it reframes everything. If narratives have been shaped intentionally, then every interview, every reaction, every moment of silence could take on a different meaning. Silence might not be absence, it might be strategy. And that idea is what's making this situation feel bigger than a typical feud. Because it's not just about who said what, it's about who controlled what was seen. Now, attention is shifting toward what might come next. There are whispers of a longer recording. Something uncut. Something detailed. Something that doesn't just hint at possibilities but explains them. If that exists, and if it's released, it could change everything again. Because right now there's still space for doubt, for interpretation, for multiple narratives to coexist. But a complete, clear account that reduces ambiguity and increases impact. What we're watching unfold isn't just drama. It's a moment where perception, narrative, and reality are colliding in real time. And when that happens, things rarely return to how they were before. Reputations shift. Stories get rewritten. And the truth, whatever it turns out to be, doesn't just emerge. It disrupts. Because once people start questioning what they thought they knew, they don't stop at one answer. They start re-examining everything. And that's exactly where things stand right now. Not at the end, not even at the peak, but in the middle of something still unfolding. Piece by piece, layer by layer. With each new detail adding pressure instead of releasing it. Because this isn't just about a feud anymore. It's about narrative. And who gets to control it.